high five. Good evening, and welcome in everybody to the MHRT Podcast. I'm your host, Manungus Creevy, alongside my co-host, Glenn Hauser, Mr. Boggins, and a 6'10". We are a fan-led Broncos-based podcast, filling you in on all things NFL news, but more importantly, Broncos news. We go live every Thursday, 7654. You know where to put them, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Now, we are continuing on our quest for 1,000. If you've ever wondered how to support a growing channel, the best way to do that is to subscribe, hit that thumbs up, click on the bell, comment, and share. The more interaction and eyes we get on the podcast, the better it is for everyone.
That's right.
And if that wasn't enough incentive, Glenn Hauser himself has said that once we hit that 1,000 subs, he will do the next podcast wearing the Barrelman barrel. And that's it. Nothing else.
I still don't ever remember the and nothing else part, but
I added that part because
it's in fine print in there somewhere.
Because is that last part very much incentive for?
We'll find out, won't we? so make sure you're slapping that thumbs up button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share so that you can know when we go live, anytime we post amazing content on our pages, and so that other Broncos fans out there in Broncos country can know that we are here. Now, we are having Nick Kendall on the show tonight, but he's not in yet. He's going to be in just a little bit. He was doing some science stuff, so he's not here just yet. He's on his way, and as soon as he's in, we'll go ahead and throw him on the podcast. So, a lot of stuff going on. I'm just kidding. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. I mean, as far as Broncos news, not really anything, but like Richard Sherman, bad boy.
Going through some stuff, man.
He's in. I know he got. There's like 7 different things that he did.
I've heard different things, and each one sounds almost just as bad as the last. But I mean, so far the number one culprit seems to be alcohol. Which I mean, Richard Sherman never struck me.
I
want
to say it's like DUI, domestic violence, assault and battery. Like there was a spider on a spider web right in front of my face. That was scary. There's like. I think it was domestic violence, assaults, DUI. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff. Drunk in public, or punk in Drublic. There you go. Punk in Drublic. I like that.
Punk in Drublic.
That was hard to say.
You know, I just hope that he can get the help he needs. You know, it's an unfortunate situation for everybody involved. I mean, who knows if there's any CTE type of situation. I mean, that's one of the first things when this is a guy who's valedictorian of his high school, Stanford, killer student there, super smart guy, very successful. It's just, it's a shame, and if you listen to the 911 call, his wife was not getting any support from the dispatcher. Boggins, I hope you never need to call 911 and get that person in Seattle, because that they were not helpful. And so, just hoping.
Or Johnny, would you want Johnny to be the 911 operator when you call? I don't know.
I would.
I don't know if hey, Johnny, it's Mundungus. Click.
He ends every call with mile high five.
If you don't do the mile high five, I can't send help.
I'm passing out. No, you have to do the mile high five.
You got to do the mile high five first.
I'm not.
There's also the story about Brady leading the Bucs to a Super Bowl win on a completely torn MCL. Who cares? Yeah, Nobody cares. Isn't that supposed to come out when like you're trying to excuse away the loss? Like you won. We don't care. Go away.
It's like I don't.
Like you could be almost decapitated, and I still wouldn't care.
Well, at this point, it's just like I get it. He's the GOAT. Fine, cool. Let's move on. I get it. It's just everyone's like, put this on the pile. Put this on the pile. I don't care anymore. I just don't care. Fine.
Yeah.
He can have the title.
How much you want to bet Johnny B. doing some soundboard while on the 911 call? Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, what's his name got signed to a monster contract?
Left tackle from Carolina.
Yeah, and then
Moton.
Something.
Let's just be glad that we signed Garrett Bowles already.
Okay,
Yes.
so here's a question. So here's a question for you: are there any free agents left that would actually help the Broncos that we should go out and sign?
In any position?
And any free agent.
I'm seeing some buzz about Justin Houston as a possibility, especially with Chubb coming back from a surgery. I don't know what kind of.
I mean, he's getting kind of up there in age, though, isn't he? I mean, Justin Houston was a big name like 5 years ago.
Who cares?
He did pretty good in Indianapolis, not last season, but the season before when he got picked up by Indianapolis.
Yeah.
But I mean, it'd be interesting to see what he has left in the tank. I mean, I'm pretty sure he'd love a chance to play against his former squad 2 times in the season again.
I'd take anything for.
Rosie Diaz put almost a 300 subs cry face and then put accidentally pressed the wrong emoji.
That's my nephew.
So close. I mean, I'll take anybody at this point for extra edge depth. I mean, who cares? Like, throw him behind there, get him out.
But wouldn't you be better at signing an undrafted free agent at this point than a free agent? If you're just,
it could be worth the gamble. I mean, that's how we found Chris Harris Jr., right? He was an undrafted.
It just, depends on what you're willing to give up. If you're really willing to give up like experience for cost, but like the cost isn't going to be that much either because I don't think you're going to pay. I mean, Justin Houston is going to be a 1-year deal. That's not going to be that pricey anyway. So I would much rather go after the experience just to get home than someone that hasn't even been signed as an undrafted free agent yet in the NFL. That's just a wash.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Oh, exciting news. It's like 12 days until training camp. Oh, so excited. I'm so bored right now. There's nothing to do.
Well, also, we're going to talk a little bit. I mean, we're saving a lot of our Broncos talk, just so everyone knows, for Nick to join. So it's not like we're just completely ignoring the fact
we can still talk about because one of the big things that came out was like with the whole ownership thing. I guess there was a story that came out. I think it was on Broncos Wire, where they gave like the top 10 ownership situations that the fans would want for the Broncos. And number 1 was Peyton Manning putting together a group and then buying the Broncos. And then he was asked the other day if he was going to have anything to do with the Broncos or ownership, and it was kind of I'm always supporting the Broncos. I'm always here. It'll be year by year. We'll see. So, I mean, could you guys see Manning putting together a group and buying the Broncos?
Yes. No. I totally could.
I could see that. I mean, I'm pretty sure sometime in his life he's gonna dip his toe in something NFL. If not an analyst or a sportscaster, more than likely, working in a front office somewhere. And what better team than Denver? So,
well, he's extremely close with Jimmy Haslam from the Browns, and so there was always talk that if he was going to run a team, it would be that one. But I mean, he's clearly not going to be the main investor. You have to have, I believe, 30% of the price. Thank you, Rosie. I believe you have to have 30% of the money liquid in order to buy the team, and then so your debt is not so tremendous.
And so that's why he'd need a group to put together.
Right.
No.
I mean,
unless it was just one person with a ton of money, basically.
Yeah, and I know that I think one of them I want to say Bezos was like number 3.
Yeah.
And then Warren Buffett's son was one of them. So he just pinged in, so I'm gonna add him because he's the host of the Mile High Insiders, Broncos for Breakfast, and Building the Broncos. He's a writer for MHH, and he's a guy that does some stuff with science. I don't even know what it is, so I'm just going to go with that because it works for me. Mr. Nick Kendall.
Hashtag
Yeah.
What's up?
Hey guys, how you doing? Good to
You
see
should
you.
just be happy.
Thanks
Like
for
the last
joining us.
time,
So
the
excited.
last time I introduced somebody, I told them they were the butt double for Elway. So I at
Oh.
least backed it down a little bit.
True.
And would you
Always
believe
come
they
back.
still stayed? They still stayed.
They still stayed on.
They did not log off.
Well, Elway's probably got a finer butt than I do. I am one of those classic white males with not much in the trunk on the back end. So thank God my wife loves me anyway.
I'm just gonna
Join the
leave that.
club,
I'm
man.
gonna leave that one alone. I'm not.
I'm not. I agree. Yeah. I agree.
Well, with every mountain you climb, Nick, it's just going to improve. That's
Yeah.
That's what I'm going
It's good
for.
for the glutes.
Every mountain he climbs, a nude picture he takes. It just.
Seems like a picture up on a therapist's wall.
Dave Glass with Nick Kendall for breakfast and dinner. I must have done something right in a past life.
Wow.
Yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays this week, doing double shifts with a show before work and a show after work. So, I mean, God, very blessed to get a chance to come on and talk football, and I'll do that any chance I can get. So, thank you guys very much for having me on.
Oh, thanks. Hey, Nick, I was just saying to the guys earlier too that your breakfast show is so fun to watch. There's such a cool vibe. It's a great stream. It's a calm stream. I love it. I think you guys are doing a really, really good job. I mean, that's not easy to put together a show, right off the bat, especially a morning show, and you guys are doing it right. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm one of those people, luckily, where I wake up and my feet hit the ground and I'm good to go. I got my coffee in my hand. So have to be one of those types of people too for the hikes that we do, in the car at 3 a.m. to get to the trailhead at 5:30 a.m. So it works well. Scott's on the Eastern time, so he's got a little bit of time to gear up. But for me out in Pacific time zone, that's 6 o'clock, I guess 7 o'clock time. I'm actually asking if we can even start it earlier. I'm one of those crazy people. It's great. I really enjoy Scott. He's been a very fun. And also, I really try to pride myself on not being biased, right? I've been a Bronco fan for a long time, but I really don't try to be. I don't want to be, a fanboy. That's not my vibe. I'd rather be analytical, real with it. And Scott, being a Falcons fan, really digs into that because he doesn't give a hoot if the Broncos succeed or anything, right? He's a Falcons fan. So that works a lot for me. I don't need to be out here and acting like, worrying about what people think or whatever, because we're trying to give it to you straight.
So how did you become a Broncos fan, not growing up in Colorado?
My old man, being from Iowa, your choices are pretty much east side of Iowa, especially Vikings, Bears, and Packers. Ooh. And my dad, he'd go out to Colorado every summer with his folks and enjoyed Denver, going to practice there. Floyd Little early on, Craig Morton, and then some John Elway when he was college age as well. So that's honestly the first game I remember, can actually remember watching, is Super Bowl in 1998 with the Broncos beating the Packers. That's the first game I can really remember. I watched the VHS tapes 100 times after that because I was hooked. I can remember one of them was orange and one of them was silver. I'd watch them back to back. Which one are we watching today, Nick? Let's pick on 99. I don't care. But became a Bronco fan. I won't lie to you though. I became there was a couple years after that where I was close to becoming a Rams fan. St. Louis, I'm a big St. Louis Cardinals fan. And my dad, he worked with Kurt Warner's sister-in-law, and I met Kurt Warner a few times. I was friends with his niece as well. Kurt Warner being from went to Northern Iowa and whatnot. I was a big Kurt Warner fan, and St. Louis is close, but stuck with the Broncos, and happy for that because Los Angeles, not for me.
Yeah, that's hilarious because I was a huge greatest show on turf fan also, and I had a Marshall Falk jersey was my first ever NFL jersey. Then later on, I got the Terrell Davis jersey, but I was technically a Broncos fan before St. Louis, but it's kind of wish-wash. But yeah, exactly. I love them too.
Yeah, I never saw that. I know Marshall Falk was a great running back. I just never saw it.
You never watched the Greatest Show on Turf?
I did. I just with Terrell Davis, you could see it. With Marshall Falk, he's just
Oh, I thought you meant in real time, watching it as it was going on.
Marshall Falk was conversation about that.
Yeah, he was very good.
What?
Marshall Falk was amazing.
So we started talking out about Richard Sherman, bad boy, and then we kind of went into. There was a story, I think it was on Broncos Wire, talking about the 10 best solutions that Broncos fans would like for ownership. And number one was Peyton Manning putting together a group and buying the Broncos. And so we were kind of talking about that. You got anything to say upon that?
It really does remind me of the Lakers a few years ago when they went up for ownership, and Magic Johnson became the figurehead of that investment group and does a lot on the basketball operations, but it'd be football operations. So that would be great. I mean, everything that Peyton Manning touches seems to turn to gold. He's been around football for a while, not only, playing it, but he's seeing his dad as well. So that would be awesome. How realistic it is. It's one of those things where I don't want to think about that one too much because I don't want to get my hopes set on it, right? Like that would be great to have Peyton Manning here for a while and being some part of the ownership or like a figurehead of the ownership group. But I don't want it to be like Denver is sold to Jeffrey Bezos and I get, upset about it. So not trying to have pulling for one person or other. I just want it to kind of get settled and hopefully somebody with somewhat deep pockets so the Broncos can compete. I know there's a salary cap, but make no mistake about it. If you have a rich ownership group, you can do more in this league than other teams.
Yeah, and I know that the ownership thing kind of got situated with them dismissing the case. So it's down to one of two things. It's either because the two oldest are the ones that dropped the lawsuit. So that means that either Brittany is buying them out or they're selling the team.
Yep.
But unless Brittany's taking out a loan, I don't think she's got the funds to buy them out.
It could be future as well, earnings from the team that this person, they're getting, whatever, 5% of whatever she gets every year. So it could be a long-term, what was it? Bobby Bonilla getting paid for years and years for his baseball contract, like
till 2035 later.
Yeah. God. So I think you could see something worked out where, because the NFL is such a golden goose for money making, that it could be, where they're not buying us out. It's more of a long-term contract kind of thing where they're getting a stipend year to year until a certain point.
Yeah.
Right.
And we
what's your ideal situation, Nick? I mean, what do you want to happen?
My ideal situation is that I win like every single lottery for the next, every single one in every state. And I just full on Jerry Jones it. General manager, ownership. I don't care. I'm steering this to the ground, but it's going to be me. No.
Yep. Agree.
Facelift, the word.
Yeah, exactly. Secret love child, the whole bowling thing. Let's do it.
Post Malone,
Kendall Arena.
There we go. But honestly, I don't really have a favorite solution other than I want somebody who's not going to be making a fool of themselves all the time. Maybe somebody who stays a little bit off of social media and has a deep pocket and cares about this team winning rather than what the bottom line is at the end of the day, making money. That's what it's about. A lot of ownership groups are more about, okay, they see the NFL, it's an investment, what they're getting in return long-term. The product is the product. Obviously, they want to get fans in the seats. They want to get luxury boxes sold. But still, the NFL protects the smaller market teams. So you don't want somebody coming in here and being like, oh, Denver, that's great. I'm going to be making more money. It's going to be worth more, especially coming off of the pandemic. It's just going to go up going forward, new TV deals. That's not what I want. Maybe Robert Smith would be interesting as well. Obviously, having a minority owner would be awesome, especially a Denver native as well. But really, it's more about getting this infighting done with the Bolin family either way, and not having someone who's potentially outright evil or just a detriment to the organization running the show.
And if they sell it, they best not move.
They're not gonna move.
Yeah.
There's not a chance.
Best not. That
There's
you
no
take that
chance.
however you want.
I mean,
Best not.
technically,
Welcome
I'm
to the
not
St. Louis
from
Broncos.
Denver or live
Woo!
in Denver, so wherever the Broncos
St.
go,
Louis
I'd probably
Broncos.
still be a fan.
Yeah,
But
no, obviously the stadium thing will be a big thing coming up as well. Obviously, Invesco or whatever it's called now, Sports
Yeah,
Authority Field at Mile
Empower.
High.
Empower.
Empower. Yep, exactly.
Power.
Where Devin Funchess is catching balls from 700 feet in the air, whatever the hell's going on in Denver these days. But no, I mean, they'll have to worry about building a new stadium. That's going to be something that's coming around because that stadium, which was Invesco, has been there since early 2000s. So it's kind of up on 20, 30 years. So you'd assume that at some point here, they're going to have to think about that. And that's probably going to be one of the big onuses on the new ownership. But moving them out of the city, hopefully not. Hopefully not. It's a nice little spot they got there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jerry World
Agreed.
Jr. That's what we need.
Cherry World.
We also talked about free agents and if there are any free agents left out there that would help the Broncos at all.
I think Morgan Moses is still out there.
No,
He signed?
Yeah.
Okay. Signed with the
Yeah,
Jets. Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's what I get for hiking too much. No service. But honestly,
What's Nick doing here? He doesn't have. He's not up on his Jets news. This is
yeah. It's gosh darn man, what a pit of misery that is. I think the biggest thing for free agents is it's going to be that next wave, right? You're going to see teams go from 90 to whatever it's going to be, 57 or whatever the number is for this year. I know they changed it because of COVID. Maybe it'll go back to 53. But you're going to see a lot of fat trimming of rosters where like some teams are deeper in some areas. Typically you don't see depth at tackle because that's the reason that position's so valuable. It's scarcity, but maybe there'll be a body that becomes available there. Maybe at linebacker, maybe a defensive lineman as well. Those are positions that I would be looking at off the top of my head. Oh, and tight end as well, because Albert Okwuegbunam's coming off that injury. Noah Fant has dealt with injuries back-to-back years. Do you want Sean Beyer being your third tight end? I mean, as much as I love my Hawkeyes, and God bless his mother, I went to an Iowa-Wisconsin game, and I had way too many adult beverages, and she saw me and said, here, come have some food. So shout out to Sean Beyer and his mom. True story. But that's I don't think I want him as my third tight end going into this year.
What did she feed you? Do you remember?
There was deviled eggs. There was like little tiny pigs in a blanket. And there was baked beans, and there was a lot of cheese. It was a game up in Madison, Wisconsin, so I think they're leaning hard into the cheese theme. So, and also then she gave me some apple pie, some warm apple pie, which not the food, the drink. So I probably didn't need that, but she's like, "Oh, do you guys want some?" I was like 23. I'm like, "Oh yes, I do want some. That would be great." Sean Beyer's mom. So that was fun.
Cool.
The last mom to give warm apple pie was Stifler's mother.
Stifler's mom. Oh, there you
Is
go.
that code for something?
Okwuegbunam, Albert Okwuegbunam.
His name. Hey,
Oh,
Stu.
it's his name. Yo, Stu McPeak.
Stu.
How the heck are you?
All right, so we've talked multiple times with multiple different guests about the impact of OTAs and minicamp on the quarterback competition. Everybody agreed it was like 2%, maybe, about what it plays into the quarterback competition. Which quarterback do you see improving, and which quarterback do you see starting the season?
Do you mean improving from OTAs? What they did in
Yeah,
OTAs?
improving from OTAs and mini camps through training camp to the beginning of the season.
I think both quarterbacks will improve through OTAs to training camp. Obviously, they're implementing, again, a somewhat new offense. It's Shermer, but every single year, these teams kind of figure out what they have personnel-wise and tweak things and change things, points of emphasis, whatnot. So I think they're actually starting off pretty even on that front. The big leg up that Locke has is he has some chemistry with Judy, with Fant, with Tim Patrick, et cetera, et cetera. But schematically, I don't think it's actually leaning one way or the other. I really do think it's going to be Bridgewater who wins the job. I think that Locke is too volatile of a player. Now, he has those peak plays, which are great, but this is a team that has two very talented running backs. It has weapons that you don't have to force them the ball. You just have to get them the ball. And it's a defensive-oriented team. So having a steady quarterback who maybe is not going to be amazing, he's not going to win you games, but he's not going to lose you games. And Vic Fangio, Shermer, Donatel, all very much guys on the hot seat this year. So ideally, again, I try not to be a fan. I still cheer for the Broncos. Try not to be a fan. Best case scenario is Drew Lock takes massive steps forward, has like a Josh Allen leap. Not that he will be Josh Allen this year, but that level of a leap. And he's the Broncos quarterback for the next few years. But I think based on what I've seen, based on what I think this team is going to be looking like and what they ideally want to be this year, I think Bridgewater is the guy who ends up winning it.
And I've said it before here on the show.
Guys. Hater.
Man, I hate it so much. You know, you talk about stats at all, and like it's like, oh man, you're a hater. It's like this is just reality. I'm sorry that you hate reality. Like I'm not a fan of the Broncos quarterback issues either, but like here we are.
Drew Lock's haircut's a little crooked. Oh, hater.
But you know, Nick, I've said it before here. It's like just with Drew's performance last year, when you would enter a game, you literally would have no idea how he was going to perform. You did not know that he was going to break out against Carolina. You didn't know he was going to bomb out against another team. There was just no indication what you were going to get. It was truly the Forrest Gump. Drew was like a box of chocolates. You know, it's Teddy's a little bit more predictable. So, you know, I can see your scenario happening, and that's not a hater thing. And we've all agreed that it makes the most sense for the team if Drew can be the guy. But my goodness, it's the stats didn't lie last year.
It reminds me a lot of Ryan Fitzpatrick early in his career, where there are a lot of big time throws, vertical throws, a lot of good shots out there. But then the next week he'll go out there and throw 5 pick-sixes, with 2 of them being pick-sixes and multiple head scratchers. I know he's Harvard, but like sometimes overly aggressive gunslinger when it's uncalled for. Also, right? Like you're in the lead. Like I keep coming back to that Kansas City game, right? It's like 2nd and 6. The Broncos are driving, and he gets out of the pocket and loses his goddamn mind and throws the boneheaded interception. And the Broncos probably lose that game because of that. They were in it, and I know it's early, but like they played a close game at Arrowhead, and that was a huge just momentum change. It took points off the board, and this is a game that's going to have to squeak by a lot of wins this year, and field position and turnovers as much as we harp on them, they are going to matter for a defensive first team for the Broncos in 2021.
Boom.
Absolutely. Oh,
boom.
I mean, it's really interesting to see how much he hasn't really. I mean, he's grown into the NFL system, of course, but like the stats are pretty similar to what he had in college. As far not as much. Like that, he definitely hasn't had over 40 touchdowns in the NFL, but I think as far as like the consistency, you see a lot of the same things, and it's really nerve-wracking to see because what my expectations are for him are the exact same expectations of when he started that Chargers game. Like that Chargers game, I wasn't sure what I was going to get, and it was a lot. It was some good, it was some bad, and it's just like each game, it's consistently you're watching someone try to grow and take into consideration what he learned throughout the week. And then that, like, once we started talking about his footwork, you would kind of see him, or his pocket presence, you would kind of see him adjust that a little bit that week, but he would be focusing so much on that something else would falter. Like, it's like he can only focus on one specific thing at a time. And then you'd watch the press conferences and him discuss what he was going through, almost like he was, in a room with a coach trying to explain to him what he was doing, right? It was like he would have not an excuse, but he'd be like, well, I saw this, so I did this specifically to this. Like, it's just like, it seems like he has such a hard time processing the whole thing. And I think that's something he'll get over time, but it's like, how long are we going to wait before we run out of time with all the weapons that we currently have and we have to pay everybody else? So I think that they'll probably end up rolling with Teddy Bridgewater just because he's going to be at least somewhat consistent and can get these weapons the ball.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're talking about the processing. I do know for a fact that Drew Lock was the worst quarterback in the NFL last year in non-play action passes. His efficiency you're talking about. So those are typically, ones where you have to go through 2-3 reads, where he was actually near the top in play action plays. And why don't you play action every single play, Shermer? You know what? I don't disagree. Play action, do it. But it's when you ask him to go beyond his first read and actually have to start to think and process and do those things for the quarterback where he is analyzing rather than reacting, he has issues, whether it's staying on that first read too long or not reading things properly pre-snap. But when it's like first read open, which is much more the case for play action as well, things flash there. He shows accuracy. He has timing. He doesn't have to overthink. But if you're asking him to play generic drop back quarterback, he struggles. And that really hampers what you can do offensively, especially when you have multiple weapons, right? If you have like one Calvin Johnson, it's like, okay, throw the ball to him. And not that Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and Noah Fant aren't, excellent receivers. They're not Calvin Johnson though. Yeah. So you have to be able to do stuff pre-snap, understand what the coverage is post-snap as well, in order to go or to know where the ball is going to go. And he really has struggled with that. He struggled with that at Missouri. He was much better in the simple air raid until they went to the more pro style concept his senior season. And he struggled with that so far in the NFL as well. And I think even one of his most ardent supporters and Ben Albright has said that, Drew Lock is not known as being a book smart person. It takes him longer for him to pick things up, which he's a football player. It's not like he's a neurosurgeon or an aerospace engineer, but he's a quarterback too. So it's difficult concept for him. It's a difficult thing for him. He's going to have to go out there and prove that he's doing better there.
So we got a couple questions building up here. The first one is from Shadow Jacker. He the host of MHRT in the Dark.
After dark.
No, in the dark. We're just gonna keep changing.
He's in the dark now. Oh, okay.
MTV2 at 2
that's
a.m.
probably for the best. Actually.
He's setting you up to either have me kick you off the show or be my bestest friend. So, Nick, all-time favorite Broncos linebacker.
My all-time favorite Broncos linebacker.
There's only one right answer.
I mean, are we It's got to be. I'm going to say Von Miller. I don't even care. I know he's an outside linebacker, but that's where we are.
Inside
linebacker. Okay, this is going to maybe upset some people as well, but I absolutely love Bill Romanowski when he was playing with the Broncos those years. That's who I would be in like all those like NFL game day, rocking that number 59. I wore 59 when I played football in like middle school because I loved him so much. Bill Romanowski, just kind of the a-hole. Obviously, the more he talked, the less I liked him when I started to understand this guy's got some issues. So I'm not going to go with, I would have to say Bill Romanowski, but I do also want to give a shout out to Al Wilson, who I grew up and enjoyed tremendously, and feel very bitter that that neck injury caused him to lose some great seasons.
So, do you have any John Mobley memories you'd like to share?
Both of those were good answers, but they weren't the right one.
Josie Jewell, go Hawks.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
the Honey Bear.
Mm-hmm.
No, it would be John Mobley. That would be the correct answer.
Gotcha.
John Mobley.
Let's see here.
Shut up. That's what that was.
That really was.
I mean, John Mobley was a first-round pick, and he went to like a tiny school, didn't he? Like you have to be like an absolute
State.
Yes, yeah, Kutztown. You have to be an absolutely freak of freaks to go back in the first round as a linebacker back in those days. So, hats off to him, and he had a good career. I did like John Mobley a lot.
We never give any credit to Wesley Woodyard, man. I always like Wesley Woodyard too.
He was great.
He was good. I did prefer Mobley, Wilson, and Gold though. Those were my three together. Those were fun.
So Nick, as you know, we love hearing your analysis. And how did you get into the deeper dives of the of looking into the players, the plays, the game? How did you start doing that, and how did you refine your skill with that?
Just a voracious reader and a consumer of all things football content. There's like coaching seminars out there. There's a shout out to Doc, who's worked he wrote It's All Over Fat Man. I don't know if you guys remember that blog from back in the day. He was one of the bigs up there, and then he came over and worked for a Mile High Huddle as well. But he sent me, boxes full of football books that I'll just have, pick one by the nightstand and pour through it. Been reading, Steve Belichick's The Art of Scouting book as well. It's just a classic out there. So that's been a lot of fun. I think the main itch really developed was because how much I loved team building, and I always have loved team building. It's not like I would go through and sim 40 years of Madden and I wouldn't play a game. I would just be general manager and build the team and try to tinker with it and make them as good as possible. And then that naturally led to a love of the NFL draft. So it became pretty obsessed with that probably about 2009. It's probably right after the Broncos traded Jay Cutler and they had the 2 first-round picks. So that was like, we got 2 first-round picks. I better get way into this. And then after that, Broncos up and down a few years. The 2011 draft with the number 2 overall pick as well. And just, commenting on it on social media groups. Then Chad, shout out to Chad, found me on Facebook commenting on a mock draft saying like, oh, well, this guy I think went around early, blah, blah, blah. Just commenting on it. He's like, do you write for anybody? I'm like, no, I'm just doing it for fun. He's like, do you want to write for us? I was like, do I get paid? He's like, sure. Okay, I'm in. Like, let's do it. So
how does this overlap with your regular job? Do you see similarities with you being a scientist?
I guess attention to detail is a big one, and also being able to analyze data and to be able to properly weight data as well. There's a lot of data out there. How much does that data actually matter? That's a big thing out there. So attention to detail and data analysis. What does a p-value mean? Like how much does this statistic actually matter? And I wear many different hats at my job as well, depending on what's being asked at the time or whatever studies are on the table or coming down the tracks. So, just being able to different tasks, especially when you're scouting, scouting the quarterback is so much different than scouting cornerbacks, is so much different than scouting defensive ends. So I think that's probably the biggest one, but I've always loved the football side of things and being able to catch it, watch it, break it down, and more and more advanced in analytics as well. So that's good. It's never going to be as good as baseball, where you have a massive sample size. You have isolated incidences where it's pitcher versus hitter. But I do appreciate the next gen data. Also, now they're going to start having the GPS data, hopefully not be proprietary, so we can look at that as well. And get it to further and further into more of this analytical side of football.
Hashtag my brain hurts.
That's a lot to absorb right there, Mike. I agree.
Shadow Jacker, dark horses, special teams, kick return, punt return this season. And then Rich said, same as Shadow, Mike Boone is returner, better for the team.
Mike Boone could be a returner. I think that right now I would say my favorite would be Tyree Cleveland as the returner. He has good experience there. I think he was the number 1 overall wide receiver recruit his high school senior season before going to Florida. So there's some talent there. It was never talent. Was not the issue for him. It was maturity and getting things together while at Florida. Also didn't have great quarterback play there while he was down there, which limits wide receivers, of course. But I do think Mike Boone is a shot as well. But right now I'd say Tyree Cleveland is probably the number 1 for the kick returner. Punt returner, I would lean into KJ Hamler, especially with how deep the Broncos are at wide receiver. He's probably their most explosive playmaker with the ball in his hands on this team. Electric, whatever you want to say. And they have very deep at wide receiver. Need to figure out ways to get that guy the ball in his hands. If that means punt returns, then great.
So no more Spencer?
I think Spencer, it's just the wide receiver room is too deep, and there are guys who have long-term control. It's not just about 2021. It's about having guys on contract for 2022, 2023, which is the case for a Seth Williams, a Tyree Cleveland, and then you also have Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, and Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick. So it's just roster math. It's unfortunate, but Deontay Spencer is is he 29 years old, 30 years old? He's a little bit older as well, and you don't have the years of control of rookie contract cost control as well.
Well, I know they brought in DeMornay Pearson L, and he was a big punt returner at Nebraska. So no, you don't think punt return for him? That was just like a practice squad move? Or
I think you need bodies. You need you 90 guys, and you cut down to 57 to 53, depending on whatever number you want to say based on the inactives. So I think that's just more of a case of bringing in bodies, and maybe you catch something. Maybe he caught a wide receiver's eye or the special teams coach's eye, and maybe they can unlock something there. You never know. That's kind of what, like Shelby Harris, before they brought him in, he was a 7th round pick being kicked around the league, and here he is today getting paid $9 million a year for 3 years. So there's always a chance. But odds are he's probably going to be one of the many, unfortunately, where the roster literally is cut in half.
How many wide receivers do you see making the team, and who would they be?
Right now, I'd say 6 would be my number. Obviously, God, put me on the spot. Cortland Sutton. My thumb's not even in the picture. Cortland Sutton. What am I doing over here? Cortland Sutton.
What's he looking at?
Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. Did I already say Tim Patrick? Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, KJ.
You can say him again. That's fine.
Jerry Jeudy, Tyree Cleveland, and Seth Williams. Those would be the numbers right there. I guess it's a possibility that Seth Williams could be on the practice squad this year. But a 6th round pick, the way they've talked about him, I don't know if they're going to subject him to potentially getting grabbed by somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
Seth Williams is that 6'5" rookie, right?
Yeah. And also you have Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick who are on contract seasons, and Seth Williams is a prototypical X, right? So he's going to take over one of those 2 players' contracts beyond 2022. So do they want to potentially lose him? Because when it's perfectly lines up, 4 years of cost control, I don't know. So I think that's the way that I would lean with that roster spot right now.
So I know that your favorite position on the football team is running back. I know you love it so much. How many running backs are they going to carry? I mean,
3.
I was gonna say I'm not seeing Freeman on there anymore, right?
No,
because you're gonna go Gordon, you're gonna go with Pookie, and you're gonna go with Boone, right?
Yep, and I think they can put Levante Bellamy back on the practice squad another season as well if they want to. But Royce Freeman, he's had his run. He was a very highly recruited player, but he's one of those guys who his mentality and his skill set does not match his who he actually is as a player, right? Like I think Oregon kind of ruined him because they run such wide offensive line sets, and a lot of it is spread. And Freeman, you cannot get to the outside in the NFL. You just do not have the jets. You need to be running between the A gap and the B gap and putting your head down. And when you do that, it's actually pretty good. He's not a super explosive runner, but it's actually pretty good. But there's just too many times where he's too slow to the line and he cannot get to the outside and he's caught. So he'll get a chance elsewhere because he's still relatively young, decently high pedigree, being 75th overall pick that year. So that's one that probably not going to make the roster this year.
Fullback.
Nick's favorite football trade is a trade for a first round for a running back.
Oh man. Yeah, that's
So what was your opinion of the trade to get Williams
Get
in the
Pookie.
I was mediocre on it. I understand it because I think taking a running back like in the first round is not ideal because, I mean, look at the Chiefs this last year. They would be so much better if they'd have taken an edge rusher, an offensive lineman, or a cornerback instead of taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, their EPA per play drops every time they hand the ball off. It's not that you can completely go pass game oriented or only, but Damian Williams was fine. Why are you using a first round pick on that? So I didn't love the trade up for Williams, but I totally understand it. I'd probably give it like a B- if you asked me to grade it. My biggest issue is you're taking away a chance at a offensive lineman. I was really hoping they would take a Tevin Jenkins there who could either play guard or tackle. Or maybe in that 5th round pick that they gave up was a 4th or 5th. I think it was actually a 4th. They could have addressed a tight end. They could have addressed the interior defensive line, which needs bodies, developmental bodies, especially right now. It's McTelvin Agim, and I don't know. So they could have gone a number of different ways, but you have a talented running back who is one of the youngest in the draft. He also had like half the touches that a Travis Etienne or Najee Harris had. He's extremely smart. Shermer really loves to run the running backs between the tackles. Javonte Williams is one of the ones that can actually do that in this class. And you get him for his best years of his career, paying him diddly. So, I mean, that's probably the best thing. Now, taking a running back at like 5 overall, like the Cowboys, when Jalen Ramsey's there for you, not for me. That's the kind of stuff where it's bad. And also, if you think you're running back away, you're not looking at team building or the draft correctly. You need to be thinking about those rookies for 4 years. But for the Broncos in this scenario, I get it. I do understand it. I don't love it, but I totally get it.
So you wouldn't have taken Saquon at number 2 overall?
No way. And I saw Saquon live versus Iowa. That was an amazing game. He didn't break off a run for over 20 yards, but I've never seen anybody do what he did in that game. I would not have done that. I probably would have taken Sam Darnold if I was them there, which in hindsight, not great either, but I'm not.
You don't know Saquon hasn't really shown that much either. I mean, he did his rookie year, but after that, it was a mediocre season, and then he tore his ACL. So
here in Chicago,
and also, that's true. And for us, I mean, Sam Darnold, he's played about as bad as a quarterback could play the last 2 years, and they still got like the value of an early 2nd round pick for trading him. Yeah. So like quarterbacks retain value. Like, you think if Saquon Barkley was available right now, he'd get more than a couple 3s? I don't know. Like, I really don't know. So quarterbacks hold their value.
That's for sure.
So do you think that this is going to be the year that we see something out of McTelvin Agim?
You kind of have to. It doesn't have to be explosive. And also, he doesn't ever have to develop into a starter to be worth that 95th overall pick. He can just be, if he's that first guy off the bench, that's fine. You need rotation and depth on the interior defensive line. George Payton would probably be the first one to tell you, if you guys watched any Vikings last year, that defensive tackle room got decimated. Like, it was the equivalent to the Broncos cornerback room last year. And the entire structure of the defense, it was bad. They getting blown off of the line of scrimmage. They had a COVID opt-out, I believe. They had another injury, so they were terrible there. You need to have bodies there that can hold up at the point of attack. And Agim, hopefully you can see that this year from him. Maybe he never develops into a quality starter, but the Broncos had 3 third-round picks that year. That's not bad process at all to get a depth at that kind of position. But you need to see more from him this year than you did last year. So if this year mimics or reflects same as last year, then I'll be worried. You need to take some steps forward. Doesn't need to be huge leaps, but some steps forward for Agim in 2021.
Yeah. Hey, Nick, earlier today, I was watching the very first early prediction record, and it came surprisingly from Colin Cowherd. He has the Broncos finishing 7 out of 10, tying with the Raiders, but he puts Denver in 3rd place, with Kansas City winning the division and being the number 1 seed, with his favorite team, the Los Angeles Chargers, being the wild card. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Broncos, this is a very talented Broncos roster, but like the quarterback probably makes up 30 to 40% of your outcomes in most games. So, last year, the Broncos quarterback position was bottom 3 in the NFL. Teddy Bridgewater, it feels like he's kind of an afterthought in the league right now. So I think 7-10 is not totally unrealistic. Like, if the Broncos bomb at the quarterback position and you get a couple injuries at key positions, like edge rusher, like let's say Bradley Chubb doesn't ever get back and Von Miller blows out his leg, then God, knock on wood. But that's then you could see that happening, right? They don't have the depth there quality wise to to fall back on. What team would actually when you lose those two types of edge rushers? But it's just because Drew Lock is such an unknown as far as his quality. So 7-10, I wouldn't go out there and say that like outright. I think that's probably on the lower end of what they will do this season. I would probably put them anywhere from 6-11 all the way to like 11-6, and most likely right there in the middle, 9-8, 8-9. But we'll see. And also that has to do with the division as well. Broncos have an easier schedule this year, but they have 3 of the top 12, top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL in their division. That makes it so hard to win, even if you have a good roster around the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think we all had said like 9-8, 10-7, and then we sat down on the podcast and went through the schedule and ended up being like 12-5. We're like, wait a minute.
Now we're dreaming.
That's too many.
Yeah, I had them 9-8 when I did that. So right there, I think Vegas has them at 8.5 wins as well. So it's they're a team that if Drew Lock can take even if Drew Lock's average or Teddy Bridgewater's average, this team should be winning double-digit games. There's enough talent on the roster.
Yeah. And last week I asked the question because a lot of people are talking about Drew Lock's jump. Realistically, what? Hater,
I sneezed.
Realistically, what kind of jump can Drew Lock make? I mean, do you actually foresee him making that Josh Allen bottom of the league to top 7 jump, or do you see him taking more of a bottom of the league to like 15 to 20?
That's more realistic than getting up there to the top 7. He does not have the tools to fall back on like Josh Allen does. While Drew Lock's a good athlete, he's got a good arm. Like you're talking about the best red zone rushing quarterback in the NFL right now. No disrespect to Lamar Jackson. It's just a different type. He's a power player. I mean, he's a reincarnation of Cam Newton with better mechanics and accuracy last season for Josh Allen. So I don't see that level of leap. Could I see him taking a leap and becoming an average starting quarterback in this league, or even let's say tier 3 if you're doing the league into 4 tiers? For sure. That could happen. It's year 3 in the league. There's no doubt that Drew Lock has more than enough arm talent to succeed. He can make big time throws, and he's an athlete. Like the Broncos, we saw it in 2019 going from Joe Flacco to Drew Lock. Like the offensive line all of a sudden looked competent. Well, when you don't have a goddamn statue back there, things can happen. You don't have to have a perfect offensive line to function offensively. So those are all good things for Lock, but it's the processing, it's the decision making, it's the accuracy as well. Like you have yak weapons galore on this roster. We're not seeing it because the ball is not getting there at the right spot at the right time based on the coverage. I mean, we all saw Jerry Jeudy in college making guys look foolish after the catch. We've seen it with KJ Hamler, Cortland Sutton out there looking like Terrell Owens sometimes after the catch with how big he is, and Noah Fant can just run past guys. But if the ball's not getting there in time in the right spot, they're not getting yak. So those are the big things for me. Honestly, I'm not asking for the world for Drew Lock. I'm not expecting everything. If he can just go out there, limit the turnovers, doesn't even have to complete a higher clip of passes or anything, just not turn the ball over as much. That's all I want. I cannot live with the turnovers.
Yeah.
So Nick, from a fanboy standpoint, but from an analyst standpoint, who are your top 3 Broncos for 2021 and why?
Top 3 as in like the most valuable players, or
just the ones you think will either break out, be most, the just perform the best, just from an X's and O's standpoint, not just from a, I'm wearing the jersey and they're my favorite player.
Make a
breakout. Okay, last year I said Garrett Bowles, and that looked pretty good. Although Garrett Bowles was really good after the
that was a long shot, Nick.
He was really good after the Browns game last year. Myles Garrett took his lunch money.
Awesome.
Myles Garrett's probably the second best defensive player in football.
Myles Garrett takes everybody's lunch money.
Yes, exactly.
Especially Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, you beat me to the joke.
But the guys that I'd say impact this year, I think Noah Fant's gonna bust out. His ceiling is impacted by the quarterback position, right? He can only go so far. But I mean, you saw him out there in OTAs. I was like, oh man, he looks swole. Those pads are huge. He's like, he's not wearing pads. Holy shit! I was like, oh, Noah Fant's a Y tight end in the league. I take that back. That looks like an F tight end. He looks like a Y now. He is built. And he also came into the league only 20 years old. So I'm really excited for him this year. I think that the league is going to be put on notice for Cortland Sutton again, capped based on the quarterback position. But he is extremely talented, and he's also coming up on a payday, and he's been off that injury for a while. I think he is going to be super fun. His route running, his hands, everything improved a lot last year. Again, 2 positions that are quarterback dependent. So how much they can explode this year is going to be linked with how the quarterback play is. The other one that I'm thinking off the top of my head is probably Draymond Jones. I feel like Shelby Harris just got paid, but you have Von Miller back. You have Bradley Chubb here this year, hopefully fully healthy. Draymond Jones with one-on-ones on the inside, especially if the Broncos aren't having to play against teams that are just protecting the football, taking the air out of it. If he can pin his ears back and get some one-on-ones, he's a really good pass rusher in those situations. So that's the other one that sticks out to me that I think could theoretically explode this year. Maybe, 7 sacks kind of thing for Draymond Jones.
Awesome.
That'd be great.
Shadow Jacker asking me a question that's not that hard to answer. Come on. You know the answer to that.
What about 3 Broncos, Nick, that you want to see improvement in going into the 2021 season?
Drew Lock, and Drew Lock.
Yeah,
that was improvement for this year. Number one I would like to see would probably be I'd like to see improvement from Jerry Jeudy in terms of his ability to link his routes to the pass set. That's one, he talked about in his interview, which I was like, oh man, thank you so much. Because he was talking about, you don't have to do 3 pro hops before getting your route open. If you're the first read, like you need to get open on that first move. And that's something that can be very helpful for him. Also the hands, we know historically speaking, again, everybody anti-data people out there, cover your ears, but drops tend to drop a lot. From year 1 to year 2, they tend to improve. Cortland Sutton, I think, had like a under 50% catch rate his rookie season. So he jumped a lot. Devontae Adams, another one. Yeah. So Jerry Jeudy should see big improvements as well. And one that I'm hoping for improvements this year is, I guess Lloyd Cushenberry is an obvious one. He's kind of like quarterback too, where it was the worst starting position in the league last year at center. And you'd hoping to get even if he's like, goes from the worst to like the 10th worst. That's a big improvement. But one that is kind of under the radar, and I thought he struggled last year, was Dalton Reisner. He needs to play better. Was that because of an ankle injury? Was that because of the scheme change, much more power-oriented, gap-oriented with the Shermer versus Scangarello? I'm not sure, but he's another one where the clock is, it's not, there's still plenty of grains of sand in the hourglass, but 2 years left. Is he going to get paid? The Broncos just drafted Miners. They drafted Moody recently as well. Reisner's going to have to play better than he did last year if he wants to get a second contract in Denver, in my opinion.
Do you see Miners beating out Cush?
Not day one. If the Broncos are struggling, then you could see that switch, especially if they fully lean into the power run game versus the pass protection. But the first time Miners even snapped a ball was at the Senior Bowl this last year. And now you're expecting him to go Division III all the way to starting in the NFL with a quarterback who is known for having some struggles in the intellectual side of things. Putting all of that on him, I just that seems like a big ask for me. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we didn't see him one bit this year and just gave him a redshirt season, given the jump. That doesn't mean he's going to be a bust or anything. Given what he was another one who was picked like 95th overall, 97th overall. But draft picks are investments, right? If you're expecting day one return, you're going to sell your family video stock before it's to the moon, right? So hold on to that. Or what is it? GameStop. There we go. But that's the one for, that's what I think of Miners for this season.
I feel like there's a video that's going to come out and from Canada of Miners like snapping like full propane tanks, as he's training in the off season.
I got you on here, Nick. How do you see Michael Ojemudia being utilized this season?
He is going to be a special teams ace. He's a big boy. He's strong. He's not going to be like a gunner, but you'll see him out there on plenty of special teams. And also, I think they're going to cross-train him for star, which is what I see early on for Patrick Surtain. Kind of the big slot / tight end eraser for Surtain, and I think Ojemudia can do that as well, and maybe even getting some work at safety. But for Michael Ojemudia, the big thing is he was probably thrown out before he should have last year. He was another late 3rd round pick, but the Broncos' depth meant that he had to play there. Cornerback was an issue before the season, and that only exacerbated as more games were played. But then you see the way the roster is set up right now. You still have 3 years left of control for Michael Ojemudia. And Ronald Darby has injury concerns. Bryce Callahan has injury concerns. Kyle Fuller is 1-year contract, and Bryce Callahan's a free agent at the end of the year as well. So the way it sets up for me is ideally you don't see that much of Ojemudia this year, but what the Broncos do, how they approach the likes of a Callahan in the offseason or a Fuller in the offseason probably is really indicative of what the team was seeing behind the scenes with Ojemudia and how comfortable they are with him taking a starting role for 2022 and beyond.
So then do you see Denver playing more of a dime and then just trusting the pass rush, or do you see him playing more nickel or just back into the base 3-4?
You'll see more nickel than anything. I think that's the new base either way, but I would expect them to see more dime than base this season overall, just to get those defensive backs out there. And Vic Fangio has been kind of hinting at that for a while with his game plays. He almost sets up his defense where he's like begging teams to run the football. Now, if you're getting gashed up front, you kind of have to change things. And we kind of saw that last year after Mike Purcell went down a little bit. The defensive fronts, their integrity started to dip a bit, but I think Vic Fangio, for being as old school and curmudgeon-y as he comes off, he's very much an analytically driven person, and he understands that it's much harder to run the ball consistently, 5-yard gain, 4-yard gain, etc. And if you're not giving up the home run pass plays, then good luck. And it's so much harder also in today's NFL to score touchdowns in the red zone rather than 50 points out, because the field is so condensed. And that's why one of the reasons Broncos have had top 3, number 1 red zone defense the past few years. So I do think that he's going to lean more into the defensive back side of things. And if that means the Broncos are, average or below average against the run, but they're not giving up touchdowns, they're not giving up explosive pass plays, so be it.
Everyone seems to be kind of obsessed with the whole coverage linebacker issue. Do you think that potentially it might be a good thing to have such strong run stuffing linebackers in there when you run a scheme that's like a 4-2-5 or like such a heavy nickel scheme where you're relying on that front 7 to just in case of on a draw or whatnot, instead of having someone that necessarily. I mean, everyone's talking about the tight end chasers or whatnot, but I mean, we know that typically Fangio has just like a drop zone for his wills. So do you see it actually being pretty good with Josie Jewell and Alexander Johnson being their skill set and being more run stuffing?
I mean, it'd be great if you had some guys that had a little bit more sideline to sideline speed, especially in this division where it's an arms race. It's an air raid offense all around. And like when people are talking about the linebackers in that Super Bowl, how great are they? Blah, blah, blah. Levante David and Devin White. It wasn't the actual coverage that was incredible. It was the ability to limit the yak opportunities because they were getting down to the sideline like that. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, as soon as they caught it, they were getting tackled. And that's, easy completions that can turn into explosive pass plays with those guys. So it is something that I'd love to see them improve on, but I don't think Vic Fangio asks the linebackers to do that much. Right, he's not asking them to drop and play that much man. Now, sometimes if there's a running back that's flexed out, you will see a linebacker chase him, but that's also saying, like, I think this is going to be a negative opportunity if you do throw the ball to running back because odds of the running back catching it are lower, odds of it becoming an explosive pass play are lower, et cetera, et cetera. So he just doesn't ask the linebackers to do that much, and that's I think that's a big key as well. A lot of people, look at Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. They're killing everybody, but people aren't watching the Raiders and the Chiefs every single week, so they don't see that. They can't really appreciate that. It's like saying, why don't we have a LeBron James stopper? Okay, that would be great. Please, like Father Time eventually, I guess, but that's it's not a feasible thing.
So I got one more question before we got to get off, and this question has been dividing Broncos country into 2 separate camps. 1 T-Rex sized chicken. Or 100 chicken-sized T-Rexes.
Oh my god!
Well, I do know I'm gonna have to get real scientific, ornithological, nerdy here with you guys, but 100 chicken-sized T-Rexes are essentially the same thing as 100 chickens, right? Like that's the evolutionary path is dinosaurs and birds, or birds diverged from dinosaurs. So would 100 chickens scare me? No, they're very flighty and finicky as it is. Now I've seen some pretty scary chickens in my day, being from the Midwest as well. But I think one T-Rex sized chicken, it would be over. That mother just gotcha. You're done.
But it's still T-Rexes. Like they're still carnivores, and they're going to try to attack you.
Birds are carnivores too. So the chickens
I
are
have
carnivore.
never had a chicken try to eat me.
That's because it's not a T-Rex size.
Yeah.
If you had T-Rexes that were the size of chickens, they would just.
But would it
spread.
know that it was T-Rex sized?
I think either way, it's a matter of perspective for the size and the easy calorie meal.
Yeah,
Mike's
I
gonna
think
go
if
to
it can look
Costco
down
and see
on
the
you,
100
it can-
chickens.
I'm going with the one T-Rex sized chicken any day.
So Nick, I do need to ask you a question because I need your advice. Do I take the 28th off of work when the Packers go to training camp, or will it be an utter waste of my time? Is Aaron Rodgers showing up? Are we going to get him? What's happening here?
I don't think it's going to happen. I think that it's going to be a holdout this year, and if anything does happen, I think it'll be after this season.
Okay. When there's more opportunity, when they have more suitors for him?
And also, I think they have less contractual control. There is some sort of hurdle that makes it more likely in 2022 versus this offseason.
Okay.
It's also, I don't think it's as financially detrimental to them.
Looks like I'm working on the 28th.
All right. Well, that is going to be about the time that we've got for tonight. We do want to thank Nick for jumping in tonight. It was great talking to you, asking all those questions.
Thank you so much.
Except for the linebacker
Thanks,
one. It's for future reference. It's John Mobley.
Is it John
He's
Mobley
not
the
gonna
third,
sleep
though?
now.
If you're going to get him right, you better
It
say his full
doesn't
name.
matter. John Mobley.
All right, well, I know it for next time.
Write it down.
We also want to thank every single person that joined us in the chat today. I know that it's really, really hard to jump onto a Broncos podcast in the middle of July because there's nothing, literally nothing going on right now. But I like to think that we have fun. So thanks for joining us here. And thank you for continuing to help us on our quest for 1,000. The absolute best way to support the podcast is to help us reach 1,000 subs on YouTube. So make sure you slap that thumbs up button, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment, and share so that you can know when we go live and anytime we post amazing content on our pages, and so that other Broncos fans out there in Broncos country can know that we are here. Now, Nick, where can people get a hold of you and see you?
You can see me Tuesday and Thursday mornings for Broncos for Breakfast. You're talking about shows that it's the middle of the summer. The hard things to talk about. Imagine doing 4 shows a week. But we have fun too. So Broncos for Breakfast every Tuesday and Thursday morning at 8:00 Mountain Time. Building the Broncos at 6 o'clock Mountain Time on Tuesday nights, and Mile High Insiders at 6 o'clock on Saturdays. So you guys also can find me on Twitter at Nick Kendall MHH. And thank you guys all for having me on. It was a lot of fun. It's always good to talk football. I could do it all day if I could, and my wife would attest to that as well. So she appreciates you guys having me on so I can get some of this energy out.
Oh, yeah. We also want to make sure that you're tuning in at 6543 on Sundays for the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast with Johnny and Isaiah. And this week they're having Denver Broncos superfan and brand new Mile High sports writer Lindsay Bebeau. Did I say that right?
Bebo.
Okay, because I keep seeing her name and I'm like, Bebo. It's like, nope, that's not right. Bebo on the show. And then at 7654 on Tuesdays, there's Broncos Talks with the 6'10" Rich and Johnny. With that, we're going to head out. We love you all. We want you to have a great weekend. But before we go, we got to have Nick join us in a Mile High Five. Do you know what a Mile High Five is?
Please say you do.
I do not.
God. Okay, all you do is you hold your hands out to the side. We yell Mile High Five, and then we clap over our heads. Boggins left. What a jerk. Boggins left. Not even okay. All right,
Johnny's falling over in his chair.
We're going to do it, and then we're going to go. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Mile High Five. Boom.
Nick, hold tight.
All right, guys, we will see you on Sunday. Thanks for joining.